Welcome to the Vital Living Forum and this recognition of Black culture and lifestyle. I'm Clarence Reynolds, and today we are talking about the importance of the arts and its vital connection to culture for aging adults. The arts hold a unique and transformative power in society, transcending boundaries and fostering a connection between people. And for the Black community, the arts has always played a crucial role in expressing cultural identity, addressing social issues, and promoting empowerment. Joining me today are artist Jefferson Mark Eugene, Terry Burns with Standing Ovation Talent Group, and Barbara Chandler with the Hannibal Square Heritage Center. Welcome to all of you. So in our community, the arts has always been a way for us to preserve culture and to share culture with young people and even older people who are learning new things about art as it evolves. Why is that so important for aging adults? We can start with you.
Yes, so the first art form I always think about is quilts. And so when we think about aging adults and we think about the intergenerational aspect of it, this is a way of being able to communicate our stories. And I think one of the things in the last 2 years when we are speaking about inclusion and we're speaking about identity, it's very important that we're able to tell our stories. And so through those art forms, we're able to shape our narrative and pass those traditions on.
You?
Awesome. I believe that mine is more so focused on building relationships as far as connecting them together, coming on one accord, understanding that movement is important, the arts as far as when I talk about like musical theater, communication, keeps the mind going, keep it focused on a certain level so that we can continue to realize that it has nothing to do with age as we grow. We just continue to grow based on how we feel. So.
And Jefferson, as an artist, why do you want your art to resonate with young people and older people?
I'll say one mission I have, because you know I'm really young, is I want my art to inspire other people to do better for themselves, help them know that it's never too early or too late to start art. I feel like that, you know, you can be 10, you can be 50, it doesn't really matter. I can say a form of art that really is really moving to me is music. When I create art, I listen to music and it helps me create new things. And can I share a short story about my grandpa? My grandpa, he turned 80 recently and he just started playing the saxophone. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's never too late to start to want to try new things with art.
Absolutely. You know, as time goes on, we sort of take whatever was our prime, and whatever art was created in that era seems like it was the best. How do we make sure that as time goes on that we still stay connected to art? I had an older friend who said to me, you know, all this rap that's going on right now, you know, we had Jack the Rapper, we had all of these people who were doing almost the same thing. Basically not as, you know, as overt as it was a little bit more fun, but it's really the same thing. How do we stay connected as we age to make sure that we don't just say, oh, I don't want to hear anything about that kind of stuff because I don't like it, because there is a bridge.
That's right. And I think platforms such as what we're doing here today is very important. Making sure that everyone is at the table. A lot of times we're saying that the younger folks and our older Sagen community, they're not in spaces together. So again, I always revert back to those intergenerational conversations, making sure that everyone, respectable dialogue, and seeing the importance of where we are and where we've come from, and being able to make that linkage. And a lot of it is repetitive. A lot of it, the music, sometimes even fashion. We have seen this. So again, it's being able to be in communication with our elders, with the older people, so they can see the linkage and have that respectable conversation.
We just want to be able to reach them and help them to understand that sometimes I don't understand the music, you know, the 20th, and I have to make sure I say, what does that say, you know? So I'm a 60s baby, so I do understand it is very important that we bring it to everybody so we can all connect and come together to understand everybody's music on one accord.
And teach, and actually teach some of the young people that they didn't come up with some of this stuff.
Exactly.
It's been around.
Exactly.
It's just been recycled
It's
and
repeating
redone.
itself.
Exactly. They say history may not repeat itself, but it definitely
It
rhymes.
does. Yes, it
Yeah.
rhymes. Yes, it does.
As a young person, what do you think is important for older people to really understand about your creative process, and you're reflecting the world you live in today, and how that has some sort of connection to them as well?
I'll say that, you know, I could say on my part, you know, the younger generation, we're not as open-minded. And I'll say that's probably an issue with us. Because one thing I could say is, you know, like she was saying, fashion repeat itself. I can actually agree with that, as in like kids nowadays, we going back to the baggy clothing and stuff and bell bottoms. I know that's old. And actually in music, a lot of, you know, younger artists sample music from the older generation. And yeah, I'll just say that, you know, I really agree strongly on history repeating itself.
And do you have any stories, either any of you, about any of the art that you had in your day that may still impact you right now, and how it really sort of shaped who you are?
Recently, I just saw A Raisin in the Sun. It is still being performed at Rollins College. And A Raisin in the Sun for me, it instantly took me back to my teenage years. My sister, who was very much into drama, an avid reader, I remember when I first saw the movie or the play, and the pride that came with that, understanding who I was as a woman of color, a young woman, Black woman coming up, and just being able to be comfortable in my skin. So when I think of A Raisin in the Sun, the Sidney Poitier, who played the leading role, and how his career went forward after that particular movie, it's very prideful. And so being able to see that maybe a week or two ago, it brought that back. And for me, that's part of the healing. In this collective conversation right now, a lot of this is resilience, identity, and how we shape ourselves in community. So being able to see something like A Raisin in the Sun, that was inspiring for me and the work that I do.
Yeah, art can reach back.
Yes, yes, yes,
absolutely.
yes.
Well, Jefferson, Terry, and Barbara, we're going to be back, and thank you for those amazing stories. And when we do return, we're going to explore the benefits of participating in the arts and how it can help improve seniors' quality of life. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Vital Living Forum and this recognition of African American culture and lifestyles. Joining me again are Jefferson Mark Eugene, Terry Burns, and Barbara Chandler. Welcome back to all three of you. You know, there's a lot of research out there that says that things like theater and dance really does help to improve the quality of life and well-being for older adults. Why is it so important for older adults to get involved in the arts and actually get out there and dance and sing and play the saxophone and do whatever they want to do to express themselves in the arts? You can take it.
I just think that it brings new life to them, because being active is very important, because when you have a lot of things that's going on in your life, I think it makes a big difference when you can move, when you can dance and think about nothing else, because at that particular time your focus is what you're doing at that moment. And I think it take away that time where they can see that, hey, I can still do this, you know. It has nothing to do with age, as I would say, you know, because if it's something that you enjoy doing, you put forth the effort, I said it turned out to be a beautiful thing.
Have you seen any changes in your granddad as he started learning the sax?
I've seen that he's been more happy. One thing I could say is I feel like it's very good for older people to be involved because it's very stress relieving. One thing I could say is for me personally, I use art to relieve stress, so I can say that can be helpful with health.
Wow, this is great. When I think about our SAGE population, our seniors still being engaged in the art, I think about their holistic well-being. I think of when the conversation around Alzheimer's and dementia, we know that being engaged, having an active lifestyle, it reduces those symptoms, it reduces those kinds of diseases. During COVID, social isolation, these are the ways in which we promote healthy lifestyles, being engaged, actively engaged, whether it's in our church choirs. I actually had one of the Pine Hill seniors to do a performance at another senior citizens community. And so I think what we gain from them is that they still have a lot in which that we get to learn from, and they still get to see their talent is very much relevant. And just overall, the well-being. We speak about how when we're running and jogging and exercising, all the endorphins that are let off. And so we know with a quality of lifestyle comes a longer and sustainable life. So I think being actively engaged, and it teaches us, it teaches me as I'm aging on how to age. Because aging, what I used to think it was as a younger person, it looks completely different now. Many of the seniors who I'm in community with, they are active. They're going to events. They're quilters. They're still dancing. And so now I know what this looks like as I'm saging or aging.
What would you say to an older adult who feels as if I don't want to get out there and try playing the saxophone or singing, even though I'll hum along at church or whatever, but I don't know if I'm gonna get out there and actually sing or be in a play or whatever it is. What would you say to them to get them moving and to say, get out there and do it, just like Jefferson's grandfather, get out there and just try it, do it? What would you say?
I would say pray about it. Yeah, it's very helpful. I feel like, God wants us to try things that, makes us happy, and he wants us to be happy. So that's one thing I would say.
I say, try it. And if that's not what works for you, maybe we can try something different. But we'll keep pushing and trying to find what works for you so that you can be involved in some type of way.
Right. I think sometimes just being in conversation, just being able to communicate and let that person be open is the beginning of to stimulate find out what they were interested before, what did they do as a young person. But I don't think we need to insist or push anyone, but just conversation alone is stimulating. Having them being able to share stories, share knowledge, give us their knowledge and their wisdom, their shared and lived experiences. I think that's a lot for someone who may not want to be physically always engaged, but being in conversation. So just meeting that person where they are and allowing them to move at their pace and making sure that they're in a safe space. So conversation, dialogue, storytelling, the oral traditions that really help to shape a lot of us, we should be reverting back to that. So just that communication, that open line of communication is extremely important for our SAGE community to know that they can still impart into us.
Yeah. And you mentioned something really important, and that is not pushing people, but you want to be able to engage people and to support them as they get involved in whether it's an artistic thing or something. They may want to start playing pickleball. I heard about it, let me try it. How do we as a community start to support older adults as we are looking at new ways of expressing ourselves? We've got a little bit more time, we're a little bit more daring, and want to try something new and with or without an audience. How do we support them and create, as the young people say, a safe space for them to be who they are?
Yeah. I would say when we're planning and creating programs for our SAGE community, it's to make sure they are in the room with us. Make sure they are a part of the discussion as far as what they would like to have in their communities. A lot of times we're planning without the people who we want to have access, who we want to give access to these programs. Creating accessible spaces, and what does that look like? Accessible spaces, I think a lot of our older community members, early hours, a lot of them like to come out early in the morning, so knowing what type of hours benefits them and works around their schedule. And again, knowing what's within their abilities that they would like to participating, but listening to them. Being active listeners is really the first thing. Accessibility, making sure that we're having inclusive dialogue, that we're not just coming up with all these great ideas and it don't necessarily match where they are. So I say making them a part of the conversation, accessibility, and just being better listeners.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I'm located in the West Oaks Mall, and I see some of the seniors walk in the morning. And I always say, you know, it would be nice for me to make sure my doors are open. So even after walking, and they may say, hey, could we come and do some stretch or warm up exercise? I'm always open to open opportunities, and that's why I look for the seniors as we communicate, because I actually learn from them. So when they come in, not only do they walk and they stop by, they also give me words of wisdom. So that's important to me too, because I've learned a lot of things through them, so I can also use that to continue to open my doors to make a difference.
I agree with both of them. I'll say that it's very good to have an open ear to, you know, seniors, because, you know, for me, they can share a lot of wisdom on mistakes that, you know, they made. I can learn from them, so I don't have to go through it myself. So it's very important.
And we live in a city that has a lot to do for aging adults who really want to get out there and do things. Just real quick, what would you say to somebody who's sitting on the couch and it's like, well, I don't even know where to find this stuff. I don't know. I didn't know people were walking through West Oaks Mall. I live right nearby. And what do you say to them to get them out and doing things?
I asked them, you know, like, what do you enjoy doing? You know, that's the first thing, because a lot of times they're very open and honest about when they speak. So, you know, you're like, okay, so what can I say that could encourage them, you know, something, some words of wisdom that I could probably say, hey, I can do it, you know, I'm 59. So, you know, at the end of the day, they look at me, you are, you know, but then I say, you can do it, you can do it. So it's like kind of encouraging each other. In order to make a difference, you got to help each other because that's the only way to make it work.
Absolutely. Well, Jefferson, Terry, and Barbara, this has been a great discussion, of course. And in our next segment, we're going to discuss ideas for new activities and events to bring into our community for aging adults. Welcome back to the Vital Living Forum and this recognition of Black culture and lifestyle. In this third and final segment, we're going to focus on the future of art and culture in this community and what art and culture in the Black community means to each of you. Jefferson, Mark Eugene, Terry Burns, and Barbara Chandler are all still here, and welcome back to you as well. I want to talk about what we began with, and that is the connection between art and culture. How does art help us to preserve our culture, and why is it so important that it is passed down through generations, that we do let our young people listen to our music in our heyday, and that we listen to theirs, and that it is sort of a circle? Why is that so important?
I think it's extremely important. Again, this is how we are sharing our stories. This is how we're shaping our narratives. This is how we are creating resilience. This is how we're healing ourselves. This is truly our efficacy and our stories to tell. If we're not the curators, if we're not the narrators, those stories can be twisted and our identity is lost. I think during civil unrest, Black Lives Matter, we started realizing the importance of, which has always been in our community, Black leadership, and what that looks like. Black leadership in our community can be a sense of our principals, our administrators, our political leaders. And so when we are speaking of art and when we're speaking of culture and where they intertwine, it's with all those dynamics in place. Because again, if we are not the narrators and the storytellers of our stories, of our history, that's where we start to lose our identity, because everybody will tell us who we are, but we will not know exactly who we are unless we hear it from the people who have lived these experiences. And that comes through a lot of different art forms, whether it's through the music, and music can influence a whole lot of different things, right? Whether it's through visual arts, through performing arts. So again, we look to art as a way in which to share our stories and to pass down these stories as well, and to inspire future generations.
Absolutely.
I believe it's very imperative that as far as connecting the two together, the youth and the seniors. So while doing productions, I realized I have to also view the entirety of all ages. I don't just focus on, okay, this is the now generation. For our children and our youth to understand the elders, I have to bring forth different things through the arts so that they can understand what their past was like, because a lot of them don't understand. I asked them some of the names of the people who did or paved a path for our lives, and they could not tell me many of them. So it's my job to make sure that I continue to give them the words or give them the names of the people, have them to do research, and then put it in our program so that when we do a production, it's not just also looking at the fact that, oh, this is boring, this is, you know, because sometimes kids, if you don't bring it in an interesting way, they don't receive it. But if you bring it to them and tell the story and let them do the story themselves, it becomes imperative that they understand it. And then they come together and then they say, now this makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing. And that is, I feel like that's something that I have to continue to do, because it's almost like saying, if I don't do it, I can't complain if I don't do anything about it. So I say a lot of us complain, but if you're not doing anything to make a difference, it will make it hard for the kids to understand because you have to break it down to them so that they can understand how it's done. And then the same thing with the seniors. A lot of times they'll ask me, this new age generation, some of the things that they're doing that are new is very hard to comprehend because even with me, some of the things and I say, what are they saying? And I say, but one thing I will make sure that they know that everything you do, make sure it's clean so that you don't have to erase it off your social media channel. So make sure whatever you do is clean because it'll carry you for the rest of your life.
And Jefferson, I have a question for you specifically. Do you have a lot of access to older music that's before I mean, do you know who Al Green is? Do you know what I mean? Are you?
I actually like this question because I listen to a lot of old music. I listen to Etta James, Stevie Wonder, Frank Sinatra. I don't know if I said that right. So, and I kind of stay away from, actually not kind of, I totally stay away from, the music now because it's very negative. And I can say that I want a lot of people my age or younger to really understand the history of music and art, specifically music, because I can say like back in your day, the music, especially specifically rap, wasn't as bad. But yes, and one thing I can say is when I stay away from that music, it helps me become more empathetic, more peaceful, and just happy as a person.
And we need to bring back groups. I'm just saying. We talked about, living in a place like Central Florida where we do have lots of opportunities. There's a lot to do here. If you live here, you can take advantage of things for free. But if you had a wish list of activities or events that would engage more people, what would that look like?
Whoa.
I'll say having, the elder people just have like a mentor kind of thing where they can mentor the younger people with, specifically art. Because one thing about me is I'm a digital artist and I know how to paint digitally, but I can't paint physically, like on a real canvas. So it kind of just, I wish that's one thing that, that's on my wish list.
Yeah, wisdom is something that is that needs to be transferred, and having mentorships and things like that. That's great. That's a great one. Anything else you think we need in this community?
Just to continue what we're doing because everything is a process and coming up with new ideas and listening to everybody. I just think it maybe get a panel of youth, seniors of all ages and trying to understand what can we do to make a difference when it comes to something that's going to be inspiring, make a big social prom. I know they do that, but it could be maybe some of the seniors could learn from the youth and the youth could learn from the seniors on how to look, how to be appropriately dressed, or just different things of that nature. I think
How to
was
stay
kind
off
of
their phones
engaging.
for 5 minutes.
Yes, stay off those phones because it is at my facility. I always tell my students, when you come here, I have a drop box. So when you come to the studio, you put your phone in the drop box, and I need your time for that full 2 hours because it is very hard for them to understand that social media, it can damage you in the long run because if your focus is always here but you come for something else, your focus is not where it should be. So that's my goal.
Wow, when you say, when we talk about how much there is to do in Central Florida, there is a lot. I always say that we are a very event-driven community.
And if you've never lived anywhere else, you don't know that.
That's exactly right.
But we have a whole lot more than bigger cities.
That's exactly right. On every corner, I think when we think about all the events that we have, and again, these targeted population, I always think information dissemination is very important in which communities can come out to make sure everyone's coming out and being a part of, making sure that we are using or messaging so everyone know that this event is for them and they can participate, of course. I think we have a lot. I like the fact that we can reinforce culture. A lot of the events you will come out, there's art, there's live music, and I like that type of reinforcement, especially when we think of Black History Month events. There are so many right now. There's a huge uptick, and a lot of it, again, is reinforcement of the narrative and the legacy in which we get to ride on. So I just think information dissemination, messaging, making sure that, again, the spaces that we're having these events are very inclusive. And I do love what our visual artist stated about that mentorship. And I think in those intergenerational spaces, that mentorship becomes very authentic and organic.
Well, I want to thank all of you for the experiences that you shared, the stories, and sharing all of your journey. It has been very valuable to our studio audience and, of course, to those who are watching. And, of course, we hope that you'll find ways to participate in art initiatives in our community. And thank you all here in our studio audience for participating in today's Vital Living Forum and this celebration of African American culture and lifestyles. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.